And we're live. It is Tuesday, July 22nd. It is the year of our Lord 2025. And I have a real first world problem going on here, which is that my portable external monitor keeps falling over. And, you know, I, a wiser man than I could figure out how to get it to stand up properly, would install it on some other mount than just having it sit on a table, but not I. And so if all of a sudden you find yourself staring at the ceiling and the image slipping, it is just because of that. And do not panic. I will fix the monitor um, eventually. Um, yes, I drove home yesterday from Highlands, North Carolina, um, and it was a longer drive than I expected it to be going there because, in fact, Western North Carolina is not just a bit south of here, but a bit west of here. And so, mysteriously, you end up driving through Tennessee to get there. And it's not your sense of the actual, if you visualize, the map, you don't think of going to Tennessee to get to North Carolina. But in fact, that's what happens. And, consult your mental map and then go revise it. That's what I had to do. But Highlands, North Carolina, lovely little town, nice performing arts center where the estimable Andrew Weissman and I gave a truly dreary joint talk on the state of the rule of law in the United States. Um, and, the audience was lovely and polite, and I hope we left them in a state of true depression. um, and I drove home, and I got home at about 10:30 last night, and I played a game of chess against an anonymous Chinese person, at least according to his the flag next to his name on the chess app. He was Chinese, and I defeated him utterly and went to sleep and woke up this morning in time to drink a cup of coffee in bed, put on one of the few non-dog shirt, non-Vishivankas that's allowed on this show, and meet the estimable Mike Feinberg, who is one day closer to fatherhood, um, and one day closer to abandoning his brief career as a media celebrity in favor of the sedate life of paternity and husbandry. Um, Look, folks, we're not allowed to have fun anymore, but outdoors the sun is shining, the birds are chirping. It's gonna be a great freaking day.
You're watching Dog Shirt TV, a fucking revolution in morning television.
You are watching Dog Shirt TV, and it is a goddamn revolution in morning television. And one of the revolutionary features, of which I really have to emphasize that there are quite a number, is that Holly is on her way home. She is stuck at Heathrow Airport. She can't join from Heathrow because she says it is a madhouse. And I responded in the group chat that you can buy good whiskey there, though, because Heathrow, the international terminal, is the home of the World of Whiskey store, where you can buy a lot of good scotches at a very reasonable price. And when I texted this, the estimable Mike Feinberg responded that he'd once bought a very fancy Mont Blanc pen at Heathrow, but that, and I'm just going to read the text. I once bought a Mont Blanc pen at Heathrow, but it broke in a rather tragic makeout accident a few years later. I'm not going to explain more. I'll just leave that statement as it is. And I was thus today years old when I learned that you could break a Mont Blanc pen in a makeout accident. And I was, of course, filled with the immediate question that I know that is now consuming all of you, which is, uh, was the makeout accident tragic for any reason other than the loss of the Mont Blanc pen, or was it merely the loss of the Mont Blanc pen that made it tragic, in which case the word tragic there would be a little bit redundant of the rest of the sentence. And another one of the revolutionary features of the show, of which, there are many, is that I get to ask Mike Feinberg for an explanation. And if he's going to take the position that he just put that out there and, whatever happens, he's not saying more. You all get to harangue him in the Greek chorus, all of which is another way of saying that we're not allowed to have fun anymore. But Mike, what is a tragic makeout accident of a sort that can defeat Mont Blanc? And if you were advising the pen maker, could you design the pen to be resistant to this sort of makeout accident?
I don't think so. I think this was entirely user error, for lack of a better term. And I'll explain the whole story, but let me preface just by saying in the interim, between when I sent you that text and when we appeared on screen together, I did get my wife's permission to relate this story. It doesn't involve her. This was like 2 decades before we met, but I figured.
But wait, I just want to say, just for those who are wondering, I never get Tamara Kaufman Wittes' permission for anything I say on the show. So when you're watching the Ben Wittes part of the show, it is uncensored by marriage or propriety or anything else. So if Mike's admitting to having a censor here, look, I don't tell my co-hosts what to do. I just want you to know that the Wittes part of the show is it's not pre-cleared with anybody.
Oh no, every aspect of my life is subject to some form of pre-publication review. It might be the FBI, it might be my family, but yeah, I'm. This is a new world for me, so
Yeah, no, I
I'm still
understand.
figuring it out.
Just thought
Yeah,
people should know which of us, has a person with
yeah,
a cane hook, getting
yeah.
ready to yank them off, and which of us is a free voice committed
Mhm.
only to the truth for you. Anyway, go ahead, Mike. Tell us
No,
about L'Affaire Mont Blanc.
yeah. So I mean, how much detail do you like? Do you want the backstory of how I obtained the pen and we got to this sorry state, or do you just want a snapshot of the moment in
Well,
time where it
so
broke?
so I
Um,
assume you bought the pen in the duty-free Mont Blanc store at
yeah,
Heathrow, right?
I
And
don't
that'll
remember.
run you, minimum of a $300 or
Oh,
something.
considerably more. So
Yeah.
I'll err on the side of including more. We've got nowhere to go. Um, so when I was in my very early 20s, this was, I think, like a year after I graduated from college. My oldest friend was living in Europe, finishing his own schooling and then beginning culinary school. And I had never, no, I had been to Europe at that point, but I had never been to Paris where he was living. And when I
I mean,
went,
let's just pause a moment and say going to Paris to hang with your oldest friend who's on his path to becoming a celebrity chef is pretty cool.
it was great. And like I was 22 years old, I think. I mean, um but the consequence of being 22 is I didn't have a lot of money. I was working as a paralegal at one of the big law firms. And I scrimped and saved for this trip for quite some time, but because I was staying with my friend at the end of the trip, I had quite a bit of cash that I thought I was going to need that I didn't. So during my layover at Heathrow,
You were like, I'm going to become one of those pretentious people who carries a Mont Blanc pen in my front breast pocket all the time.
no, had I been carrying it in my front breast pocket, we would not have had this tragic accident, which I will get to in a moment. But yeah, so I bought a Mont Blanc pen as a remembrance of my trip and brought it back to the United States. And, a few months later, I met a young woman at the bar we both frequented, which I don't know if you have any listeners in Chicago, but the bar is called Hopleaf. It is absolutely worth visiting even to this day, but I think it's expanded, like its footprint is about 4 times larger than it was when we were going there. Um, and they now have a full Belgian restaurant and everything. But we went because basically they had a phenomenal jukebox that was filled only with blues records. And I mean actual 45s from before the 1960s, and they had a selection of conservatively 350 different Belgian beers. Anyway, I met a young woman. We went on a couple dates, and as this happens in one's dissolute 20s, we end up in her apartment one night and we're making out. And, the way I carried my Mont Blanc pen, I carried it everywhere, was in my front pocket, such that the clip right here was on the outside of the pocket and the pen was on the inside. And
And wait, but before we get to the makeout accident,
yeah, yeah,
one question. When you bought a Mont Blanc pen as a memento of your your stay
yeah,
in Paris, were you aware that the company is not French but is German?
of course.
Okay,
And
just
I think it's
checking.
actually Swiss.
No, no, it's based
Are
in
you
Hamburg, I believe.
are you sure? I thought it was Schweizdeutsch.
I think Mont Blanc is based in Germany.
All right. I
But
Yeah,
you were aware
I
the
knew it
point is
was.
you were aware that it's not really
Yeah.
a memento of Paris. It's a
No.
memento of, some Germanic tribe in, you know, Transalpine Gaul or something.
Uh, you're talking to somebody who has like a 6-inch tattoo of a scene from Goethe on his arm. So I'm all
Okay,
right with
just checking.
Germanophilia. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, so the pen was in my pants pocket at the time, and just I'll say that in what I will politely refer to as jockeying for position, the pen got caught at a weird angle, and the clip was sheared entirely from the remainder of the cap, and the Mont Blanc pen was dead.
Although it's just a
It's still
you
functional, but like the clip was gone. The clip actually broke into two pieces and it was not fixable. And the
whoa.
reason I use tragic is like, again, I was in my early 20s. I didn't have a high paying job or anything. The pen was a serious investment and there was a little bit of heartbreak when I broke it.
Wow. And was that the end of the relationship?
No, we went on a couple more dates.
But once she'd broken the pen, it was
I mean, look, I take responsibility for breaking the pen. I should have thought better about what were in my pants pockets before embarking on this adventure. It was not her fault. She was a lovely human being. I wish her nothing but well. I have not thought of her in
was
close to 25 years, probably, before this incident was brought to my mind by the Heathrow comment.
I just want to raise a question that has come up in the chat.
Yeah.
There was no ink spilled in this pen
I,
breaking incident?
there, correct. Yes.
So that actually, look,
I assumed they were
your
making the
story
off-color
your
metaphor, but yeah.
storytelling jokes are skills are extraordinary, but I have to say that's disappointing because when you think of a pen breaking, you think of ink spilling, clothes being
Yeah.
ruined, and you know, so you know, John Hawkinson points
Yep.
out in the chat that this story is better teased than told, which
I
was
tend to
your
agree.
original position.
Yeah.
And I think we should have stuck with that. But this did allow the use of 10 minutes of everybody's
Yeah.
time, which is, part of the goal of
And
telling stories on the show.
if I could address Carol's comment, she's wondering whether it was a cartridge or an ink reservoir. I just want to be very clear. I am not a peasant nor a barbarian. There is no set of circumstances under which I would use an ink cartridge over a reservoir.
Um, so it was a fountain pen. It was not a
Oh yeah,
roller ball
yes,
or a.
I tend to only write with fountain pens when I am doing personal writing or taking notes. It's something I regularly got made fun of for at the FBI.
Yeah, no, I actually uh, have been known to use a fountain pen
Mhm.
too. Um, all right, all of which is merely an impromptu introduction to today's show, which of course has a clear agenda to it. Mike, what are we talking about today?
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things we could talk about. I tend to go to like literary and film conversations, but I know that's not necessarily the traditional
Well,
milieu of this show.
so obviously, first of all, if members of the audience have items on their mind that they want to talk about, please break in and
Yeah.
let us know. I uh, uh, I think we could. Uh, I managed to really not focus on the news at all yesterday because I was driving back, mostly listening to French Revolutionary content, and so I'm a little bit behind. And but yeah, it doesn't seem. John has a very important point about a misquote from Don Quixote in yesterday's argument. John, if you want to come on and tell us about that, that would be great. And I am consumed this week with Lawfare's hiring process. And so I'm going to remain kind of behind um, uh, um, on a lot of news this week. Um, Film, literary, what are you thinking about?
Well,
Yesterday we had monsters
yeah,
and
no, this is well, this might be a monster depending on your point of view and your politics, but I was reading the new biography of William F. Buckley by Sam Tannenhouse this
yeah,
morning.
it's supposed to be voluminous but good.
It's quite good. But it got me thinking about Sam Tannenhouse's previous book, which is a biography of Whittaker Chambers, which I would unhesitatingly recommend to everybody. And that in turn got me thinking about a novel that too few people have read. It was Lionel Trilling's only novel called The Middle of the Journey, which is a fictionalized account of a Whittaker Chambers character who goes to visit in the Connecticut countryside a number of his friends who have remained very much pro communist fellow travelers, and sort of the emotional fallout on his life that the position he took had. And it got me thinking that I do double features with films all the time. One of my best friends and I do something we call Satanic Sundays, where we pick 2 horror movies, and then while my wife is at church, we get on the phone and discuss them Sunday mornings to do a sort of compare and contrast and analysis. But I realize like nobody does that with books. So if I could ever figure out if you could do like a poll on Blue Sky or something, like I'm curious what people's best pairings of nonfiction with fiction would be in terms of like creating an autodidact double header. Because mine
That's
would definitely,
interesting.
yeah,
I
mine would
mean,
definitely be the Chambers biography by Tannenhouse with the novel by Lionel Trilling.
huh. And how conceptually related do they have to be in order to um, count for a pairing purposes?
I think there just has to be. It can be pretty attenuated. I think there just needs to be at least like one minor filament connecting them. You know, one interesting anecdote, and it could be more, of course, but just some thematic hook and fastener between the two.
What if you didn't do it with, like, what if you did it with only new fiction or books you hadn't read yet and new nonfiction? So you didn't say what have I read in my
Yeah.
history that is um uh um that is compelling and linked,
Mhm.
but I'm interested, say, in conspiracy theories. So I'm going to read Will Sommer's new book about
Mhm.
QAnon,
Yep.
and on the fiction side, the Pakistani novel A Case of Exploding
Yeah.
Mangoes, which, by the way, is the best thing about uh, best book about conspiracy theories I have ever read.
Have you read Foucault's Pendulum?
I have not.
That's a phenomenal conspiracy theory novel. And
So
despite being by Umberto Eco, it reads like a shot. I mean, it's a page.
interesting. So yeah, I think that there's a good um, I think there's a good concept here, maybe for a Dog Shirt TV book club.
I think that would be great. Carol suggested pairing Tinker Tailor with a biography of Kim Philby, which I think is a great idea. The problem is, I have yet to find a really good biography of Kim Philby.
So
There's a good book about a brief period in his life that came out a few years ago, but in terms of an overarching biography, I haven't found one that I would consider really good.
well, the I forget what it's called, A Traitor Among Friends,
Yeah, hang on.
is pretty good. It's not. I mean, it's more a book about his A Spy Among
A Spy
Friends,
Among Friends, but it's
who
about a very limited.
right. But it is about the same part of his life that Smiley, that
Yep.
Tinker Tailor is about. Um, in I mean, it's about the exposure and capture
Yep.
and how he got away with it and what he did. I mean, it is about the Bill Hayden part of
Yeah,
his life. And it has a very cool introduction by John Le Carre.
it does. And John le Carre actually wrote earlier another essay on Philby that is the introduction to this book, which is excellent.
See that you bring up counterintelligence issues, and Mike has
Yeah,
all. He
it's
doesn't just have all the stuff in his head; he has it within arm's reach. Um, uh, um, so yeah, Carol. The title of that is uh, a Spy Among Friends, and it's by John McIntyre, and it's quite good.
no, it's Ben McIntyre.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Um, and it's quite good. And it led me down a unfortunate path in my life, which has still never been entirely explained to me, which is to say somebody used some data in there to, I'm not sure if the word is fish me, but to engage me in who turned out to be a bit of a scammer. And so yeah, that was fun. Well, we could start with that. So folks who are in the Greek chorus, would you guys participate in a dual fiction, nonfiction book slash movie club? I like the book side better than the movie side. Um, uh, but yeah, and we could do this. Uh, um, So John Hawkinson said, I kind of thought we'd already done doing that by having author guests on TSTV. And that's correct. We are and we do, except that we don't all pre-commit to read the books. And so we wouldn't be able to, like, we can have a discussion with the co-hosts, but not with the audience and not with. So sure, let's do it. Uh, and how do you want to work this, Mike? Should we start with? We could start with Carol's idea and just do that, since you and
Yeah.
I have already read those
Hmm.
books, and I can recite most of Tinker
Tinker
Tailor.
Tailor. Yeah.
Yeah, which remains the greatest spy novel ever written, um, and also has the distinction of being one of the only spy novels whose realization in not in film, because the modern,
I'll defend that movie.
I will not defend that movie. I think it's unfortunate. But the 1970s miniseries with Alec Guinness playing Smiley, though Alec Guinness is completely inappropriate physically to represent Smiley, being tall and lean, and everything Smiley is not physically striking looking, uh, is a masterpiece. And much of when I still, and Le Carre actually, I was felt vindicated when Le Carre wrote this, that he had the same experience, that he could not write Smiley novels after that because his view of Smiley was so infected by the physical image of Alec Guinness playing him. Um, and that is why he wrote only 3 of the 10 Smiley, imagined 10 Smiley novels. He later wrote a final one as an old man, but it's not very
There's
good.
there, there's many more than three Smiley novels. He's just only the main character
Well,
in
there,
about five or six of them.
well, so he's the main character in the first 2,
Murder, Equality, and
Murder of,
Call for the Dead.
right.
Yeah.
But then um, Smiley had this idea that he was going to, or Le
Yeah.
Carre had this idea that he was going to write, and he shows up
Mhm.
occasionally he shows up. He's a
Spy Who Came
minor
in from the
character
Cold.
in The
Yeah.
Spy Who Came in from the Cold, and he appears occasionally in others. But the idea of the conflict between Smiley and Carla was going to be the central narrative
Yep.
of 10 books,
Mhm.
and he did 3 of them, um, one of which is barely about Smiley. And Smiley is in the beginning of it and at the end of it, but he's
You
not
afraid of the Honorable Schoolboy?
exactly. But then he stopped, and I think the reason that he stopped was that or so he said anyway, was that he was unable to write them after the miniseries
Mhm.
of Smiley's People and Tinker Tailor, both of which are masterpieces.
Mhm.
And um, so how do you want to do this? Should we give everybody, well, we can't give everybody a couple weeks to read these because you're going to have a baby and disappear.
Yeah, but I mean, look, I've read both these books before, and as long as I know when we're doing this enough in advance, I'm unemployed and my wife has 3 months of maternity leave. So we can make it happen. I'm
All right.
happy as long as we schedule it far enough in advance.
So, two items for the Greek chorus. One, yes or no, show of hands, or show of yeses or nos. Are we starting with Carol's idea, both because Mike and I have both read the books, and because um, uh, it's thematically appropriate to both of our careers?
Mhm.
Are we starting with Tinker Tailor and A Spy Among Friends? I see some yeses. I see no nos. Oh, lots of yeses.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll also add while we're waiting, Tinker Tailor was one of three written pieces that actually are the reason I went into counterintelligence as a career.
Well, we are going
Yeah.
to save that
Mhm.
for. All right. So let us, and you and we should invite some special guests to join
I've
us.
got a couple in mind. I don't want to
Yeah,
say who they are,
I do
but
too.
yeah.
But uh, and and so what we will do is we will figure out a day,
Mhm.
and then we will have. Should we do two shows on it, one on each book, or one show on the two books?
What about doing one supersize show?
Like a 2 hour
Yeah,
show?
yeah, a dog shirt daily literary special.
Yeah, a Dog Shirt Daily, like that's an all day. But we
Mhm.
should, we should do it in the evening so we can do it over drinks. Uh,
I'm happy to do it anytime. I strongly suspect pretty soon day and night will have no meaning for me.
yes, that's correct. All right, so we will figure out a time. We will figure out uh, whatever special guests are joining us, and we will um, be and we will be in touch about time, and you guys have your reading assignments. Um, for those of you who have not read the books, I strongly recommend reading the
Tinker
fiction
first. Yeah.
first. And the reason for that is that the world that Smiley creates is quite different from the. There's whole important aspects of the uh, Kim Philby story that entirely do not appear, including Kim Philby's sojourn in my neighborhood. He rented a house a few blocks away from me, that does not have a plaque on it, and spent much of the war in Washington. Is probably responsible for the absolute mania of James Jesus Angleton. Uh,
So 2 points. I was going to interject. One of the great sorrows in my life, aside from the loss of my Mont Blanc pen, was when I moved to DC, discovering that the restaurant they used to get lunch at no longer exists. Because they used to meet up a couple times a week for a 3 martini lunch. Um,
yes,
and you inadvertently hit on one of my two biggest pet peeves. It's actually James Jesus Angleton. His mother
y-
was Mexican, and it was
yes,
pronounced with the Hispanic pronunciation. Yeah.
yes. So I don't. That is correct. I think there's something weird about when talking about. You're quite right, and I stand corrected. I have to say that's a very peevish pet peeve.
You want to know what the other one is?
Yeah.
Um, People who think that Les Miserables takes place during the French Revolution. That has always
Oh,
driven me nuts for some reason.
I didn't know people thought that.
A lot of people think that because the knowledge of student protest movements in France is not something that's really taught in education anywhere, probably. And it's Donald Trump's favorite musical. I'm willing to bet he thinks it takes place during the French Revolution.
Well, I will just point out that uh, uh, the president's knowledge of Victor Hugo is probably minimal,
Yeah.
and I think the average person who likes that musical probably has a limited sense of the origins of the story, just as a matter of idle speculation. Much like most people who love the musical Cats have never bothered to read Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats, which, by the way, is the most fabulous thing to read to small children.
So I have been trying to think what the right word is. Not quite aggressive, but I've been rather enthusiastic about building my son's library before he even gets here. Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats is one of the first things I ever bought.
Yeah, so my kids grew up on it, and
Mhm.
such that many of those poems I know by heart at this
Yeah.
point. Uh, and and EJ Wittes and I have been known to exchange lines in it, just to challenge each other to go back and forth
Yeah.
with. Um, uh, hey, I know it's really un-PC and you're not allowed to like Rudyard Kipling anymore, but the greatest piece of children's literature ever written is the Just So stories.
Yep.
And the first three of them, um,
Is that How
uh,
That Elephant Got His Trunk? Is that one of them?
that's the fourth, I believe, but how the whale got his throat, how the
Okay.
camel got his hump,
Hmm.
the and how the rhinoceros got his skin
Okay.
are the first three, and they are uh, not offensive at all. In fact, in the Just So stories, there's really only one story that you gotta leave out for the kids, because it's got a, it's not a,
Yeah.
it's Kipling at his worst. But there's really only one of them. The rest of them are completely delightful, and the first three are are all very short. Some of them get quite complicated and rich, but the first three are each like a page and a half, 2 pages, 3 pages. They're funny, and as soon as a child can talk, you can, like, as soon as they understand English, you can read it to them.
You will be shocked to know that downstairs we have a boxed set of a limited edition of the complete works of Kipling.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And yes, Andrew, the one you can't read to children is How the Leopard Got His Spots. And I think once you get above a certain age, you can read it anyway. You just have to give a content warning to the kids. But the it's pretty bad. Most of that book is just the greatest prose ever written for children. And some of it is, you know, Shakespeare level stunning. And where else can you say to a child, "In the sea, oh my best beloved, there was a whale, and he ate fishes. He ate the starfish and the garfish and the crab and the dab and the skate and his mate and the mackerel and the pickerel and the really truly twirly whirly eel. All the fish in the sea he ate with his mouth. Just so."
Who needs Dr. Seuss?
Right. I mean,
When you have like an entire Victorian tradition to draw upon.
it's brilliant stuff, and And his niece
Mm-hmm.
later wrote that the Just So stories as written are a completely pale imitation of what it was like to hear him tell them orally, because they were actually written as stories for his
Yeah.
daughter. So, I know we're supposed to hate Kipling now, and I'm sure The White Man's Burden is just as bad as everybody says. But, people make great contributions even in the worst, even if they sucked in other ways. All right, so we're going to do that. We will figure out an appropriate format.
Mhm.
We will get a.
I'm just going to throw this out there. Do we want to do this live and in person? Depending on the timing, we could make this coincide with my house hunting trip up there.
Well, the problem, we could be in person, but we have to. The Greek chorus is
Oh,
scattered
scattered
around,
across. Yeah.
so we would have to. We could do it in person, but
Okay.
it has to be a broadcast matter. And what we're going to do is, I think we may make this a subscriber only piece of content, or at least the full thing. We have to. We'll figure out the logistics, but it's a great idea. And you see, this is what happens when you show up on Dogshirt TV with nothing but a Mont Blanc pen story to talk about. It's generative. All right, what's next?
Um, can we continue on the children's literature theme for a
Yeah.
second? 'Cause I could actually tie this back to a previous guest of many Ben Wittes podcasts. One of the best gifts, in my opinion, at least, that we've gotten for the baby thus far, came from Pete Struck and his family, and he got me an autographed first edition of Edward Gorey's The Gashly Crumb Tinies.
Those are great.
And I'm really looking for, like, it's a first edition and it's signed by Gorey, so I'm almost reluctant to put it within arm's reach of a child.
I think you have to. I think the Edward Gorey signature is actually improved by a
by
little
some
bit of
drool and bite
vomit.
marks.
And, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's so it's yeah, I'm looking forward to reading that one. And I've been buying books to pretty much last him up until he's about 12 or 13.
Yeah, so the infant books is actually the hardest one.
It is. Yeah.
Because there are relatively few great ones, but there are great ones.
I will take recommendations because I have had a hard time finding them.
Yeah. Hold that thought.
Okay.
And now it is time to introduce Mike Feinberg to Richard Wattenbarger, who is our resident musicologist / music historian in the Greek chorus. Richard, what's on your mind this morning?
I wanted to meet Mr. Feinberg. So
it's bound to be disappointing. I hate to tell you.
Yeah, I've already been disappointed. Every day every day you're on. It's just such a burden. No, since Ben outed you as a Wagnerian of sorts, I figured that you needed to be punished for this, perhaps. Kind of the way I've punished myself for it. I'm curious about your Wagner story. I'm hijack. So you don't mind if I hijack this, Ben?
No, I'm happy to tell that story. But that one actually is a tragedy. And I'm not lightly.
As long as nobody lights themselves on fire at the end of it.
But I mean, it does involve real human death.
Whoa.
So not to we'll make it short so we don't totally bring down. And some people will know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to identify them just out of respect, but shortly after law school, I went to work for a firm immediately, and one of my good friends went to go clerk for a judge. And the judge had
Oh, I
season
know.
tickets to the local opera company, which is a quite renowned one in the town in which we were living. And I'm purposely anonymizing this. Um, and very tragically, members of the judge's family were murdered by a particularly deranged party against whom the judge had ruled. And as a result,
Later represented by one Glenn Greenwald, as I
it's,
recall.
yeah, I think so. But yeah, so the judge's opera tickets were not used that season and were given to my friend who was a clerk. And the first one, his wife couldn't go, and so being his next most pretentious acquaintance, he invited me, and it was Das Rheingold. And it wasn't part of a full cycle. They were doing one of the operas a year leading up to a full cycle, as they normally do. Um, so we went to that. I fell in absolute love with the piece, and then a couple of years later, when they did the full cycle, I actually went to two iterations of it 2 weeks in a row. I enjoyed it
That's
that.
a heavy time commitment.
It is, but I was in my 20s. I didn't know any better. I didn't need that much sleep. Um, it was worth it. And, you know, since then I've watched videos of many of the sort of legendary performances. Most notably, I can't believe I'm forgetting the name. The one that caused such a controversy at Bayreuth that was based on Bernard Shaw's interpretation.
You're muted, Richard. Here, I'll unmute you.
Yeah, that was the Patrice Chéreau production in
That's right.
1970. It was the Centennial Ring, uh,
Yes.
which um, uh, which contributed to the scandal. And it wasn't just
Yes.
the production; it was Boulez's conducting,
Yep.
which really uh, uh, offended many in the audience. But then at the end, in 1980, when they did it the last time, they got a long ovation.
One of one of like the great missed cultural opportunities, two of them actually, I think, is I think it was during the 80s, Bayreuth tried to get both Werner Herzog and Ingmar Bergman to direct us one of the seasons, and they were never able to do it. Just never came together.
Well,
But I think
actually,
that was
uh,
phenomenal.
Herzog did direct a. It was either a Tannhäuser or a Lohengrin at Bayreuth, and
Really?
that was filmed.
All right. I now know what I'm
The,
probably going to be doing with my last weekend as a childless individual.
there you go.
Yeah.
So I have a music history question for you,
Okay.
Richard, while you're here. Over the weekend in Highlands, North Carolina, I went to a chamber music concert, and it the second half of the concert was a four hands piano performance of The Rite of Spring, which uh, was introduced to us as by the music director of the Chamber Music Festival as actually the original scoring of The Rite of Spring, and that the instrumentation, the orchestration that is now the iconic, is actually a subsequent orchestration that Stravinsky did under the guidance of Rimsky-Korsakov. And the piece is just an entirely different piece when played on piano. And I was curious, first of all, uh, do you know if this is true? And number two, why is it never performed that way in this world in which we purport to value original instruments and, you know, uh, like non-embellished performance? What do we know about the history of this? Everybody knows that the first performance there was a riot and blah blah blah, but is it really true that it's actually written for piano?
No. Uh, so what happened in and also Rimsky-Korsakov was dead by the time that Stravinsky wrote The Rite of Spring, so he couldn't have supervised the orchestration or had a hand in it. Um, Actually, Stravinsky showed himself to be a brilliant orchestrator very early on, even before Firebird. So if you go back to Fireworks and the Scherzo Fantastique, which are both before Firebird, they're both dazzling, and so those are, I want to say 1903, 1905, somewhere in there. I could be wrong about that. It might be a little later. Um, so what Stravinsky almost always composed at the piano, and so the Rite of Spring was conceived at the piano, and we have the sketches for that. But it was premiered, you know, with Pierre Montieu conducting, with the whole orchestra, and then but what typically happens when when you're doing a stage work is the somebody, I think in this case it was Stravinsky himself, will make a piano reduction or a two piano reduction for use in rehearsals with in this case the dancers, and back in, I think it was about the mid 70s, people started recording the two piano version. So there's a recording of the two piano version by very young Michael Tilson Thomas, and I've forgotten who the other pianist was, that they made in around 1974 or so. And since that time, it's actually been recorded. And the piano version has been, two piano version has been recorded quite a bit. Most recently, or very recently, there's a recording by Daniel Barenboim and Marta Argerich, um, that has came out a few years ago. So it
But we
has a
should,
long
but we
history.
should, we should think of the two piano version as derivative of the orchestral version, not the other way around.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, so this is an example of misinformation, presumably not disinformation, being propagated from the stage at a chamber music concert. Not to mention in the show notes, something
Yeah.
about it felt weird to me, that it's not like, pictures at an exhibition where I've known from the beginning of time that it's a piano piece that gets orchestrated.
Yeah.
This one came out of nowhere to me, and it is good to know that my instincts are, and that my idea that da 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 is actually a bassoon line,
That's right.
not a piano line, is correct. And for those who came on the show this morning, not knowing that you were going to get a book club, a discussion of children's literature, and the legislative history of the Rite of Spring, um, not to mention the sordid, tawdry details of Mike Feinberg's pen life.
Yeah.
Um, this is the kind of thing you can only get
And
on.
we haven't even gotten to my favorite piece of Stravinsky lore.
What's that?
He was Warren Zevon's piano teacher.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Warren Zevon was a classical music prodigy as a child, and he was actually tutored by Stravinsky.
That's interesting. All right, one other Stravinsky related question emanating from this concert. The um, the music director of this festival, in his uh, apparently filled with misinformation introduction, um, also said that the Rite of Spring is, I believe he said, the foundational piece of 20th century music. And I immediately bristled at this because, first of all, it's kind of a grandiose statement to make about anything that's not Bach. We're kind of high up the tree already. But then I was sitting there listening to it, thinking, okay, what are the alternatives to it? And you have to be in the beginning of the century, so you can't, you know, it's got to contain a lot of the different threads of 20th century music. And I actually could not come up with a viable alternative proposal. So, Richard, I want to ask you, given that this statement is hard to justify, what should I have leapt up and said, but what about the blank?
Yeah, I would say I would jump up and say, well, what about the Schoenberg Second String Quartet, which is where Schoenberg first, writes extended movements that no longer that are no longer tonal. Um, or you could say, you know, any number of Schoenberg works from around the same period. The Schoenberg's Five Pieces for Orchestra were premiered just a few months before The Rite of Spring, and in some ways they're even more radical than that. But at the end of the day, saying that one piece is the uh, foundational work of 20th century music is, I mean, it's just bad. That's bad history because there are so many, you know, another plausible candidate would be, I mean, you could say would be Strauss's Electra or even Salome. So both of those would certainly be in the running, especially Electra. So now, Mike, do you get into Strauss operas at all? Have you?
Um, so I've only seen one, and it
Mhm.
was under unusual circumstances. And I know we've only got a few minutes, so I will make
I
this
think
one
we've
shorter
lost
than my
Mike.
usual
Ah,
anecdote.
yeah, Strauss will
Um,
do it to
Yeah,
Strauss will do it to people.
basically,
It's
I spent quite a
once
bit of.
you
Oh, my back?
yeah,
we
back.
lost you for a sec.
Okay. All right. So, unusual circumstances. I did a
Was a
number
pen
of
destroyed in the
no
process?
no pens were destroyed, but I did a number of summers in a language immersion program. I did a couple in Chinese and some in German as well. And the German one had uh, German for opera singers school attached. And the production they did at the end of the summer was a Strauss opera. I forget which one it was, but it was delightful.
That was
And
If it
probably
was delightful, it was probably Rosenkavalier
I think
actually,
it
because
was.
or
And if I
or
recall, his,
it might have been
his
Ariadne auf Naxos, which is actually easier to put together in a short amount of time like that.
I don't know, but his librettist, I
It's
believe, is one
Hofmannsthal.
of my favorite authors, Stefan Zweig,
Oh,
right?
oh, okay. No, you heard Die Schweigsame Frau, the Silent Woman,
Okay.
which is actually
Hmm.
from 1933,
Okay.
and that was I don't know if you know the story of that, but it was the Nazis censored it
Yes.
because of and Zweig fled the country and then later committed suicide. But
Reside in South America. Yeah.
yeah, but the
well,
the earlier Strauss operas, I think if you're a Wagnerian of sorts, you would really enjoy. I think you would enjoy those.
I will.
well
I
we
will get some today.
we have to wrap, but I will just close with Strauss. lived long enough to, unfortunately for his legacy, make his peace with the Nazis and be allowed to continue composing. And he was a very old man. And when in 45, when the he's still alive, and when I believe American troops came into his apartment, he stood up archly, as the story goes, and said to them, "I am the composer of Der Rosenkavalier," which I'm sure they're like, "Yeah, dude." Yeah, Richard Strauss, great composer, not a great American, but less appalling than Richard Wagner. And we're going to leave it there, folks. What a awesome smorgasbord this has been. You have your reading assignments, and Mike and I have our putting together a little book club assignment. I'm going to write something about this. What's that, Mike?
We'll figure it out.
You're muted. Oh, no, I think I have disconnected my earpiece is what's happened. How about now?
We'll figure it out.
We will figure it out. We're going to be back tomorrow. The special guest we had for tomorrow has canceled. We're going to reschedule that, scheduling emergency. So we will be at the normal time. And I don't know who the co-hosts are going to be. I don't know who the guests are going to be. Maybe Richard will come on and give us a tutorial on the options for the foundational piece of 20th century music and why it's a stupid thing. By the way, I think you can make a pretty good case for Thelonious Monk, although it's a bit later in the century, but there is before Monk music and there is after Monk music, and they don't sound the same.
Ben, you mispronounced Derek. You mispronounced Derek Dolphy.
Fair enough. We're going to be back, and it's going to be a riot of a good time. We'll see you then.